In this PowerPoint, I'll take you through a little introduction to the IEOR field, and then go through an overview of our undergraduate degree programs. And hopefully this will answer some of your questions, and I'll be happy to answer specific ones afterwards. Okay, so I think we're quite distinct from the other engineering departments is we're not tied to a particular technology or a specific science area, but we're dealing with tools and methodologies for designing, understanding, managing risk and decisions in big real-world systems, be they supply chains, manufacturing facilities, energy systems, healthcare, delivery, or financial systems. I'm the head undergrad advisor. We have a team of 4 or 5 others, and you'll be assigned a particular advisor. I've been on the faculty here since '79, so pretty good source for history if you're interested in that. And even before that, I was a student, both undergrad and grad. In between, I was out in industry for a couple of years. And I worked my way through undergrad at a railroad, and then took a staff job in the headquarters for a couple of years. And in addition to being a professor, I have a software and consulting company on the side, and we do stuff in high-tech manufacturing and supply chain management. My particular research areas are in semiconductor manufacturing and freight transportation, and this containerized supply chains from the Far East to the USA. We don't have a Nobel Prize in IEOR. The closest thing we have to that is the Franz Edelman Award. We have 3 finalists in the department, Professor Shen, Professor Oren, and myself, and I'm a 2-time finalist and a 1-time winner. Okay, so IEOR is engineering thinking, engineering approach to the management of big processes, big systems, where we're integrating systems of people, money, knowledge, information, equipment, energy, and materials. And we're applying mathematics and physical and social sciences and thinking with the principles and methods of engineering design in order to A, understand big systems, and B, evaluate different ways of running them and refine them and improve them and optimize them. So I like to call our field managerial level engineering, is that we're not at the micro level of inventing new technology, new mousetraps, be it in mechanical or civil or electrical or chemical, but once those things turn into useful products and now a big industry is going to be formed, then it's time to get us involved to do that higher level design of the systems and management to make it successful. Okay, so we're dealing with things like supply chains, manufacturing facilities, logistics, healthcare, big financial portfolio systems, energy systems, things like that. And so we're dealing with the management level decision making on investments and resource allocation. We're dealing with big data to drive decision making, and very often to what was hard decisions are turned into automated processes. And then we're very concerned about uncertainty and risk, which is always present in big complex systems, and managing that well. Okay, oftentimes we don't get in on the ground floor when something new is invented and takes off, but we need to come in and re-engineer it when there are issues in quality, productivity, or customer service. And so we do a lot of work in those areas on existing systems. The last 2 initials of our four-character IEOR acronym, Operations Research, is the discipline of applied mathematics, which deals with analytical methods that are useful in decision making. And so we spend a fair bit of effort in developing tools to solve problems, make decisions in business and industry, all kinds of areas: telecom, internet, energy pricing, grid computing, homeland security, public policy, you name it. Another acronym, MS, Management Science, is somewhat synonymous with operations research, but it's focused on applications of scientific and mathematical analysis to business processes and systems, and in order to make them more efficient or more profitable. And so we're integrating considerations of marketing and finance and information systems and operations. All these things, of course, need to come together at the system level to run a company well. The latest term describing what we do is business analytics, you may have heard. Okay, so in terms of topics that you learn in the major, we go through the theory of mathematical optimization and the algorithms for that. To deal with risk, we do a lot of probabilistic analysis and simulation, an area we call stochastic modeling. We do a great deal of computer simulation, trying to replicate the big system inside the computer to where we can run many what-if experiments. We use a lot of statistics and probability to describe the uncertainty and variability so that we can understand risk management. Quality control is an area of an application of that kind of statistics. Another traditional area is inventory theory, where you have variability in supply and demand, and you're trying to manage the inventories that are the boundary between those processes. So our majors will get as much mathematics education as an applied math major would, but in addition, they will also get a strong education in statistics and probability so that you have an understanding of how to analyze risk, variability, and uncertainty. We get a general engineering education, as all engineers do in physical sciences, and you can strong training in computer programming, and then some general engineering courses you can take in topics you choose, such as properties of materials or electric circuits or the like. And then where we want you to be able to work with and lead groups of the technical engineers from the other engineering majors to be able to understand their issues and their products and their concerns. Our people get strong computer and data science skills. You'll take courses in not only computer programming, but also database design and development. No matter where you go, you're going to be dealing with lots of data. So these are very useful skills to have. And then unlike a lot of engineering majors where it's highly technical and a company or society will always rely on the engineer, there's for things like running a company or a hospital or a government, there's always an intuitive alternative to everything we do. And so you have an extra requirement in IEOR that maybe other engineers don't have as much of being very good in communication and leadership to be able to demonstrate why there's a better approach than the intuitive approach that maybe has been in use or is being considered. And then since you're dealing with big, huge, complex systems that are distributed geography and distributed not geographically and distributed socially, there's many people in many places and many things involved, is that to rapidly comprehend the big systems, looking through data and observing things up front and so forth is an important skill that, again, it's not something that other engineers working at a lab table would need, but in ours, this is something that's important. Okay, so where do our people go? Well, as I mentioned, we're not really tied to a particular technology, so we're pretty flexible, and we can go just about anywhere big decisions need to be made, where there's a big system that needs to be operated, or there are big risks that need to be managed, or there are processes that need to be re-engineered or improved. So our people go into service industry, they go into the big financial firms, they go into healthcare, into the HMOs, they go into transportation companies, they go into logistics, they go into places you might not expect, like theme parks. I think Disney World in Florida has about 80 IEs, for example. They go into retailing companies, and they go into manufacturing, the semiconductors, the aerospace companies, the automotive companies, the biotech and pharmaceutical companies. Our people are in great demand by the management consulting companies since they have better analytical training than the typical MBA, and they're younger, and so the consulting companies can get them earlier. And software companies are big on hiring our people. And the R&D shops also like the systems approach of the IEOR people, and so they hire our people. Okay, the large, mature, established companies, an Intel or a Tesla or whatever, they know what IEOR is, and so they have a department that focuses on that kind of work. But even the newer and smaller companies can benefit from quantitative decision analysis. So some of our graduates who are entrepreneurial in nature will go to work for companies that really don't have organized departments in our field yet. But there's a big opportunity. There's usually a fair bit of low-hanging fruit in a company like that. Or they go to work for consulting firms that help these companies. Or some even start their own companies or join startups in a variety of areas. And a lot of our grads have been big successes in that area. So the positions people go in range all over the organization of big companies, from the factory floor up to the executive suite, where, the old notion of an efficiency analyst is really a good description of our graduates. And they might start with a title like an analyst or internal consultant, and after a while maybe be promoted to a project manager, and later to a whole department director. And some continue to move up the ranks to the executive office. For example, Tim Cook, the CEO of Apple, is an industrial engineer. This is a shopping list of kinds of companies that our grads have gone to. You see some of the big management consulting firms, some of the big financial organizations, then some of the more mature companies that have industrial engineering departments, the Bechtels and Boeings and Intels and Lockheeds and so on. Then you have project and group manager type jobs. Some move directly into at software or retail or high-tech companies. And maybe about 40% of our graduating seniors continue on directly into graduate school. Some might work and go to graduate school later, or some may just continue working. And of course, all the big name schools are very happy to admit Berkeley graduates. This is some data that's about 6 years old now, but the blue bars are job postings and the red bars are hires. And what stands out in the middle there is the big gap between blue and red for industrial engineers is that because our people are flexible, they're really useful in all kinds of industries. And so I have never heard of one of our graduates unable to get a job. Everyone will have multiple job offers to choose from. Here's some even older data, 2009, where it was listing by professions who in a poll said they were the happiest. Clergy was first and firefighters were second. And then number 9, first of any engineers, were the industrial engineers. As College of Engineering departments at Berkeley go, we're not that big. We have about 15 faculty. It's a little complicated to count because some professors are half-time in other departments, and we just had some new hires, so I suspect this number needs to be bumped up. Maybe it's more like 16 full-time equivalents at this point. We're also the home of the Entrepreneurship and Technology Center and have a certificate program in that. And we have about 50 students a year graduating with the Bachelor of Science in Engineering. We also have a Bachelor of Arts in Letters and Science, so-called ORMS, Operations Research and Management Science degree, and that may be another dozen students. We have about 10 Master of Science students a year, about 50 Master of Engineering students a year, and maybe half a dozen PhD graduates a year. I'm not sure what effect the COVID-19 will have on these numbers, but this is, our department's small enough that everybody knows everybody else, and it's a nice atmosphere. This is some crude statistics on starting salaries. There's a lot of variability here, depending on where you go to work around the world and what kind of job, but the starting salaries for our people are very good. And of course, they're higher if you already have work experience that's relevant to the job. Okay, so let me walk you through the program. In general, all engineering majors at University of California don't have a lot of engineering content the first 2 years. It's mostly preparatory studies in physical sciences and math and breadth requirements. And this is part of the state master plan for education so that students at state colleges and community colleges can transfer into the UC campuses at the start of their junior year. So some of you will have advanced placement and won't need to take certain courses, and that's great. You can go take other things or move forward in your program. But there's a couple semesters of calculus required, a semester of physics, and a semester of chemistry or other physical science. And then maybe one of the first computer programming courses. E7 is mostly using analytical packages rather than programming per se from scratch. And you'll be doing an engineering breadth course or two. Then in the sophomore year, you have more math, linear algebra, vector calculus, and the like. Another semester of physics, a couple more engineering breadth courses. And there's a list of approved engineering breadth courses, but in general, any engineering course that's not about IEOR and not about statistics or applied math or computer programming, but treating some real engineering problems in any engineering field, just to get engineering breadth, we'd be happy to approve. Is that we want to encourage you to learn about what other engineerings do as well. A couple humanities social studies courses. We require proficiency in programming a high-level language. Most people these days do Python, but if you wanted to do Java or even C, that's okay, as long as you get good at it, and you can take one of the computer science courses in the various languages to do that. And then your first IEOR course, we number it as E120 for engineering because there's a lot of interest across the college in basic engineering economic analysis, basic cash flow financial analysis and the like. It's typically taken as a sophomore. Okay, then the complexion of your program changes greatly in your junior and senior years, where now you're mostly taking courses in your major as opposed to preparatory stuff outside the major. So we have 5 required courses, a couple of courses in optimization, a course in engineering statistical analysis, a course in probabilistic analysis, and a course in simulation and probabilistic modeling. And then there are electives. And so typically in your junior year, you'll get the 5 required courses out of the way since they are prerequisite to certain of the elective courses. And then there's a certain number of technical electives in total required and a certain number of humanities and social studies electives. So you'll probably be fitting some of those in your junior year as well. I'll talk about the IEOR elective courses more in a moment, but let me go through the structure here. And then in your senior year, you're taking more IEOR electives, more technical electives, which could be inside or outside IEOR. We have a required simulation, computer simulation course, and the most fun course of all, your last semester, IEOR 180, is the senior project course where you work in groups of 4 with a local industry of your choice to apply what you've learned and improve the company. Okay, now let me talk about the elective courses. We have a big shopping list of these. These are probably either different methodology courses or different engineering problem areas. So we have a course on databases, 115. I teach a course on high-tech manufacturing, 130. We have a course on machine learning and big data analytics, 142. 150 is traditional production and inventory control. 151 is service operations. 153 is supply chain. 164 is an optimization modeling course. 166, decision analytics. 169, integer optimization. 170 is concerns human factors, human-computer interface, industrial design, and 171 is about organizational design, especially in startup firms and building strong systems and organization in companies. And these are all elective courses. There are 6 total that you need to take, but you'll probably find time to take more. And take the areas that seem interesting and you want to learn about. This is your chance to pick up domain knowledge of what are the problems in a particular area, what are the characteristics, intricacies, and how to tackle those problems. Okay, so about the non-IEOR coursework, the university has the reading and composition requirement of 2 semesters in English composition. You may have placed out of that or maybe not, but you certainly have to fulfill that requirement. Communication, writing well is very important in our field. And then you're required to do 4 more humanities social studies, and they have an approved list of this for those. And then I mentioned the engineering breadth. This is 9 units. Most engineering courses are 3 units, so this is like 3 courses. And as I mentioned, there is an improved list of pretty standard lower division courses, but just about any course that treats real engineering problems would be suitable. You can file a petition to have that count towards your engineering breadth. And then for the other technical electives, there's endless things you can take inside and outside the department, in the business school and in letters and science, and in other engineering departments. that's pretty flexible. Okay, let me spend a few minutes on our Letters and Science degree. I don't know how many ORMS people might be viewing, but we do have the major within Letters and Science. It's like I mentioned, it's only about a dozen students, maybe as much as 15. We're incrementally growing it. The first year, lower division looks similar. You have the 4 math courses, the E7 computer packages, but now you have a little more economics and business flavor, where you have to take an economics course and a basic introductory business course. Upper division, you see the same probability and risk analysis and stochastic processes course and the same 2 optimization courses. But then you have the requirement of at least 2 from the machine learning and statistical engineering, statistics and simulation. And then there's a structure in the ORMS where you choose a cluster for your electives, where you can focus on electives in economic systems, in electives in industrial and service systems, electives in societal systems, or electives in advanced algorithmic decision making. Okay, so that's the quick overview. You can look up the specific requirements like I showed here on the IEOR website. As I mentioned, you will have a faculty advisor. I'm the head advisor, and the buck always stops with me. If you have any questions or any petitions or stuff, please contact me. I'd be happy to help you out. And if you want to have a Zoom appointment, send me an email. We can do that too.
So Leachman, we have a question. A student asked, what is the difference between the master's program and the MEng program?
So the Master of Science program is a technical program in the IEOR courses. The Master of Engineering program is preparatory for a managerial engineering career. So it includes both management training and industrial engineering training, not quite as much IEOR technical content as the MS, because like I mentioned, it makes room for the managerial and entrepreneurial training. And it has a year-long project with industry, whereas the MS program, you can do either a comprehensive exam or a smaller project. So the MEng is a more professional program with more industrial content, more contact, more managerial training. The tuition is much higher, so it caters to different audiences. Most of the MS students are ones who have done an undergrad at Berkeley or another excellent IEOR program, so they have very strong technical training and they'd like to continue in the technical area, and they might even be going on to PhD after that, whereas the MEng is really meant to terminate and start a professional career.
Thank you so much. Appreciate your time, Robert. If anybody has any additional questions, we'll give it a minute. And I think we've finally worked out the audio for the presentation, for the chair's presentation, so we'll see if we can get that done as well. So, Leachman, do you have any advice for any of the transfer students that are coming in that that who don't have the opportunity to take any upper division courses before coming to campus?
Well, talk to your advisor is the most important advice. You probably should find out from Engineering Student Services about what transfer credits you have and what requirements you have left remaining. And then you can work out a program with your advisor. For some students, you'll have enough credits that you'll be able to finish in a normal 4 years, and others you may be looking at an extra semester or two. That often happens. But it's different in every case, so you need to work with your advisor on this issue.
Thank you so much. Are we ready?
Hi everyone, welcome to IEOR Berkeley. My name is Max Chen. I'm currently a professor and department chair for IEOR. First of all, I really want to say congratulations to all of you. Being admitted to IEOR Berkeley is certainly not an easy task, and you have done that. I will use the next 10 to 15 minutes to give you an overview of the department. So let me try to share screen with you. See what it works. Okay, I hope you can see mine. Okay, so for more information about the department, you probably already know the website, ior.berkeley.edu. And if you have any questions for the department, for anything about your future studies, feel free to email me. My email address is here, maxshen@berkeley.edu. Okay, quick history review. By now, you probably already know in my opinion, UC Berkeley is one of the best universities in the world, public or private, if not the best. And what's unique about Berkeley is that we make so many fundamental contributions here. For example, in 1922, we discovered vitamin E, and then in 1930s, we discovered the statistical theory. This is the foundation for the current really hot research areas of machine learning and AI. And I also want to mention that at Berkeley we have the open source software, for example, the Unix system. Even nowadays, with AI and machine learning tools and software, we are again leading the way in doing open source. So this is really what I'm really proud of. And you can go to this website to find out many other fundamental contributions from the university. Now back to the department. Our department actually have a close relationship with the Operations Research Center, founded by George Danzig in 1960. So if we go back to the history, in 1954, the Division of Industrial Engineering was established within the Mechanical Engineering Department. So we are not a formal department at that time. And by 1956, the Department of Industrial Engineering was officially established. And you recognize that at that time, the name doesn't have a Y in it. Then in 1960, George Danzig joins the IEOR faculty. And then in 1966, the department name is officially changed to Industrial Engineering and Operational Research. And during the last 60 years, many of the faculty made many fundamental contributions to the field of industrial engineering and operation research. I will not have time to go over the long list, but there are some fundamental awards in Van Neumann Theory Prize, the Turning Awards, and several of our faculty members joined the National Academy of Engineering. And as I mentioned earlier, we all know UC Berkeley is a top university, and the College of Engineering has been ranked in the top 3 forever in the US News ranking. And our department, our graduate program has been in the top 3 for many years. Sometimes our undergrad program is ranked number 4, but we then quickly go back to top 3. I want to mention that we are the smallest industrial engineering program in top 10, even top 20 programs. You probably know that, for example, Georgia Tech, being number 1, have about 60 faculty members. Number 2, Michigan have probably 35 faculty members. Even Stanford, even they are not ranked higher than us, they still have more than 30 faculty members, right? So being in the top 3, top 4 for 40 years is certainly not an easy thing to do. I hope you already know what you are getting into, but if you don't know yet, don't panic. You will learn OR and industrial engineering here. Roughly speaking, operational research combines optimization and stochastic theory, and then develop mathematical models to model uncertainty and complexity in the real world. And then industrial engineering actually applies those kind of techniques, like you just mentioned in OR side, to real problems. For example, in supply chain, in logistics, in transportation, in energy, in services, in healthcare. So this is why we are called IE and OR. But nowadays, the boundary between OR and IE is getting blurry because many of us do research in both OR and IE. Okay, so as I just mentioned that on the theory side, many of us are doing theory in optimization, stochastics, and supply chains, and then apply this to many different industries, including energy, healthcare, and automation, supply chain. And nowadays, machine learning and data science are really getting really, really popular. But I want to point out that IE also have a major role in all this recent movement. Actually, you probably will find out that many of your classmates in the IEOR classes are from the data science major. Roughly speaking, I think for people in data science and computer science, we'll try to figure out kind of the pattern in data, what are the things that you can discover in the data. But IEOR is more on the decision-making side, right? So after you understand the data, how do you make crucial decisions is what we do here. So this is why we will have a major role to play in the current machine learning and AI industry. So I'm really excited to introduce a few new faculty to you. So we hired Bana in the fall of 2019. Her research area is mainly in the computer science, machine learning, data science domain. So it's a good addition to the department because we are also moving into this data-driven decision-making direction. And we recently just hired Rajan after he completed a postdoc at Columbia IEOR, and after he finished his PhD from MIT. He will be teaching some classes related to service operations, revenue management, supply chain, and logistics. Since I mentioned Columbia IEOR, I want to mention an interesting fact to you. There are probably more than 100 industrial engineering departments in the whole country, but only 2 departments, 2 universities have the name IEOR in their title. So IE is really interesting. We have more than 10 different departmental names, right? Georgia Tech is named Industrial and Systems Engineering. Michigan is Industrial and Operations Engineering. We are IE and OR. Stanford is Management Science and Engineering. And there are many other names floating around. So it will be good to keep in mind that there are only 2 IEOR departments in the whole country. Anyway, so another really exciting young faculty joining us is Daniel. He actually will be our only teaching assistant professor. And he will be really teaching a lot of good classes for us. And during the interview process, many of the undergrads from the department were so excited about Daniel because he has a really interesting way of teaching hard concept to you. So I'm sure you will enjoy taking classes from Daniel and the other 2 junior faculty. But overall, we have 21 faculty members in the department, although 2 of them are in the graduate school, but I think they are still really actively involved in the department. And we have about 400 students, and undergrad we have about 236 right now, and 46 PhD students, and more than 100 Master of Engineering students. So here's the list of 21 faculty members. I don't have time to go over their research areas. I would encourage you to go to their websites, read some of their CVs and research papers. And if you have any question, offers are really nice. Just send an email to us, and maybe we can schedule some meetings with you. They will also have 6 wonderful staff in the department. Heather is mainly on the graduate student services, but you probably will have a lot of interaction with Jeannie. Jeannie is our undergraduate student services officer, and you probably will have a lot of interaction with Kit, who is in charge of the communication part of the department. Especially if you join a student organization like IISE and Alpha Pi Mu, you probably will work with kids quite a bit on some activities and then news items. If you have any question about IT, computer, software, James will be the guy you go to. And you will have a chance to interact with Diana, who normally will be sitting in the front office, but now with COVID-19, she worked from home, but you can still, if you have any question about the department, you can feel free to send her an email. And Rebecca is our department manager, who managed the 5 wonderful staff members I just mentioned. Okay, what can we do? What are the students who come here? What kind of job are we getting? So we took a kind of data analysis for our students. The sample is from 2017 to 2019. So roughly among you guys, will be 61% domestic students, and then the rest will be international. And we also have 19% transfer students. And immediately upon graduation, I think 75% of you immediately find a job, which I will mention a bit later. And then 17 to 20% of you will be looking for a graduate school. And a small portion of you still couldn't quite decide what to do. So you probably will be taking a year off or just preparing for graduate school. And then after you work, actually the salary side is actually not too bad. The median level is about 80K from the last 3 years. But I want to mention that there are so many surveys about job happiness, and IEOR certainly is always ranking the top 2 among all engineering disciplines in terms of job happiness. And then 85% of us will be working in the business side. Only 15% work in industrial sector, even though we're called industrial engineering. One of the reasons is that most of the manufacturing production jobs are not in the US anymore. So most of you will be working on services and consulting and business sectors. So here are the kind of the sample job companies that our students have been working in. You can see from here that many of the companies are in the Silicon Valley, and some of them are really high-tech companies. But we also have people work for some banking companies and consulting companies. And you can even see Walt Disney here. Actually, several of the VPs for Walt Disney were IEOR graduates. So that's a fun job to have. So many of you will have a job title being called business analytics analyst, or manager, or engineer, or data engineering, or simply consultant. And those are the keywords you can see from the job titles. And analysts and managers and other kind of the top 2 words out of the job titles. So let me give you some sample from mainly from the last 2 years. Where do students go? So some of you will go to grad school. Actually, the number of students go to grad school is decreasing. I remember when I first joined IEOR Berkeley, that year I wrote a recommendation letter for 7 students. They all went on to great grad schools like Berkeley, Stanford, MIT, Princeton. But in 19, we have a student went to Chicago Business School as a PhD student. Some of you also joined our great master program, Master of Engineering at Berkeley. This is really a popular program. You only stay here for 1 year, actually 9 months. During this 9 months, you can work on a real project from a real company, and then you can easily find a pretty decent job here. So Nick Fu actually became a master student coming in this fall. And then you can see we have students work for Google and Microsoft. I also want to mention that some of our students have been really successful, have their own startups. For example, Tony Xu, who is the CEO of DoorDash. I actually still remember having him in my class. At that time, he was really an active student, asked a lot of students about logistics and supply chain. Now he owns one of the really biggest delivery company on earth. So if you have more questions about jobs, opportunity, internships, we will have so many opportunities here. Probably you can see so many activities going on. If you need this slide, I can share with you. But those are the job opportunities. We will send emails to you before the events happen. So make sure to sign up. Maybe it's too early for you, but it will be good to go to some of those events and then figure out what kind of people they are hiring, what kind of expertise they are looking for. And you can also join this Handshake website, Berkeley Jobs website. There are so many information there. And then, beside our website, we also have a Facebook and Twitter and Instagram accounts. We keep on sending news and information about the department. And then we also publish a newsletter every few months to basically tell all the former students what's happening in the department. So with that, I will stop here. Next, you will have Professor Rob Beachman give you a lot more details about the major, the department, and what courses you'll be taking, and many, many more. Okay, so once again, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. You have my email already. And I really wish you a smooth and successful 4 years here at Berkeley IEOR. Okay, thank you. Bye.
Thank you all for your patience. It took so long to get that up, and technical difficulties in a new format, but we appreciate knowing that and helping and going into this next semester. You probably have a lot of questions about what it's going to be like. So right now, I'd like to invite the students that are going to be on the student panel to share their screen, so I can put you up, and you can put you up on screen so everybody can ask you questions. Yeah, there's Sarah. Here comes Hannah. Yay.
Hello.
Hi, and Annika's here. Fantastic.
God, I couldn't.
One more. Oh, here comes Megan. Great. Hi.
Hello.
So thank you all so much for participating. I would like if you could at least start off with an introduction and what your class here is, and it would be nice to know why you picked IEOR as your major.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Jenny, for having us. As always, trying to make sure that I can be heard. Okay, it looks like I'm unmuted. Hello, everyone. My name is Anika. I am a rising junior, and I've been at Berkeley since my freshman year. I absolutely love the IEOR department, and I'm sure you'll learn reasons why in this coming panel. But ultimately, you know, what drew my interest to it in the first place was I actually had not heard about this major before I was applying. So that's very normal if any of you were in that situation. But, you know, I saw this interesting major and I was like, let me, you know, search up about it. And I saw words like efficiency and optimization. And I'm like, well, I'm a very lazy person. I want to help the world become as lazy as I am. So this sounds like it's for me. So, you know, applied, was really fortunate to get into such an excellent program. And, you know, I have not regretted it for even a second. So really excited to be here and kind of share with all of you. Okay.
Awesome. So I'm Sarah. I'm a rising second year. I also have been in this program since I was a freshman. I joined, I've always been really interested. Actually, as a kid, I watched How It's Made. I don't know if you guys also watched that, but it was it was my version of like Nickelodeon or cartoons. And I think that that was probably setting me up for a future in manufacturing, I hope. But that's part of the reason why I think I joined IEOR and why it appealed to me so much is like Anika, I really like the idea of optimization and making systems more efficient, especially like physical systems. So I've been enjoying my time learning all about that here.
Hannah or Megan?
I can go. So I'm Hannah. I am going to be a junior this year. And I chose IUR because in high school I studied a little bit of business because my high school had a program there, but really for me I really like the problem solving and like the technical aspect of engineering. So I wanted a major that kind of balanced the two of those, and I felt like IUR did that pretty well. So that's why I chose the major.
Cool. Hi, everyone. I'm Megan. I am also a rising studying IEOR. For me, I think my sort of background is kind of similar as well to what the others are saying. And on top of it, I had an older brother who actually went to Berkeley. He knew that I enjoyed, you know, doing STEM and seeing like math, like continuing doing math work throughout college, but I didn't want to study that purely. So he kind of recommended me to look into this major, which would have more applications in the long run for business, for other problem solving type of roles. And so that's kind of how I ended up here.
Great. Thanks so much. Now we know who you are. Do you have any particular advice for the new students that are coming in? Anything special, any lessons learned, anything that, because we have a mix of freshmen and transfers that are sitting into the session, but what sage advice would you give to a new student who's coming into this major?
Get to know some people who've done it before. So definitely get to know some upperclassmen. It really helps because IEOR is such a small major that you can't just ask someone on the street like what it's like, what classes I like. You really do need to know someone who's been through it before. And it really helps because then you can hear what classes you should take together, what classes you shouldn't, or like maybe sometimes there's like an order of classes that's not required, but it might help to have like certain classes before others that you wouldn't know unless you talk to someone who's taken it.
And finding that community, no better time than now to pitch. In terms of finding that community, it's really not too hard. You can like turn to anyone in any of the IEOR classes you take. If you're incoming, many people don't take IEOR classes their first year at Berkeley. And so in that case, we have this wonderful student organization that all these amazing people on the panel are part of as well, called IISC, which stands for Institute of Industrial Systems Engineers. If you give it a look, you know, we have huge support systems in there. So finding upperclassmen who really care about giving you advice and sharing what they've learned along the way is not too hard. Everyone is more than happy to sit down and talk to you for as long as you need.
Yeah, I would definitely agree and add on to what Hannah and Anika said, which is that in my first year, at least, I don't think I use that as much because like Anika was saying, your first year, you take a lot of lower divs, which are, you know, math classes or maybe like a CS course that's with a lot of students from other departments. But I didn't realize, like I didn't leverage the fact that IEOR is a really like a small, tight-knit community and something that most other students on the Berkeley campus, I would say, honestly don't have. And because of that small community, I think you really get to, you get help from a lot of peers who have gone through some of the things and will give you advice. And I hadn't realized that in my first year, but I would really recommend also adding to like the organization ISC as well to get that sort of help and that community and join something like that.
To kind of add on to what Megan just said about joining IASC, as a freshman or even a sophomore, when you're not really taking those upper division, like IEOR specific classes, it's a great way to meet other people on your same academic track before you actually have the chance to engage with them in a classroom setting. So not only will you be able to connect with other people who are at the same place academically as you, but you'll also be able to connect with those upperclassmen, like Hannah was talking about. Super valuable resource, extremely valuable community.
And so, a student asked, how do you join IASC?
We have an interest form. Does anyone have it copied right now?
So the first thing that you should do is either join our newsletter or follow us on Facebook, because the Facebook and our newsletter will be updated the most frequently. Especially the Facebook, we update that like anytime something new is happening, that gets the most immediate update. But we have an interest form somewhere. I think
we will find it
on us right now. We'll send it in the chat when we find it.
Yeah, we'll get it for you. And I just wanted to kind of add on to an addition. Sarah said it really well. You get to meet people same year as you at Berkeley, also year above, that are also majoring in IEOR. We also try to have connections with the industry and also with faculty members. So, this is kind of a way to really immerse yourself in the IEOR community. As well as their sister major, ORMS, that you'll learn a little bit about.
We have another student question. Are any of you double majoring or doing a sim degree? And how much of a workload increase have you faced doing that?
So Annika and I are, well, Annika's crazier than me, but I'm in we're both in MET. We're both in MET, and I'd say it does increase the workload, especially, so the classes itself are not like a huge workload boost because I actually really enjoy taking both the business and the IEOR classes. The thing that changed and added a lot of work was the breadth classes that we had to take for Haas. So when you double major out of COE, then you have to fulfill all the requirements for that college as well. And Haas requires you to take like your physical science, your arts and literature, and all these other breadths, and those can definitely get kind of tedious sometimes.
Okay, just to unpack that a little bit, Hannah, MET is a program that's a joint degree, a simultaneous degree with the Haas School of Business. So it's a business degree and an engineering degree.
And then Annika can share her experiences.
I think Hannah covered it. I think there's definitely some things that are added by having other experiences, but even if you don't double major, like I do highly recommend to everyone, I'm sure Professor Leachman said this as well, I encourage to take classes that may not be in the IEOR department, because as you'll see, what we learn in our IEOR classes can really be applied in many, many other fields. And so having the opportunity, we're at Berkeley, which is just such a great institution with so many resources, just taking advantage of that. You might be surprised with what you learn, and it might kind of change what your future holds. And so I definitely recommend that. And in terms of like having space in your schedule to do it, that definitely exists. So hopefully it'll become less daunting after your first semester. But as we said before, like we have so many great upperclassmen, and we're all more than happy to kind of give you some advice or some tips and tricks for specific classes as well.
Yeah,
and if you're interested in double majoring, you definitely have time to take classes you're interested in too. Like I'm taking a lot of classes, so I want to take like a language class and Data 100 and things like that. And it's more work, but you still have time to do things that you're interested in.
Yeah, I also definitely want to add to what Anika was saying in terms of taking classes from other departments. I'm not double majoring, but even so, I feel like it's really important to realize like you can take a lot of classes from other departments as well. Double majoring, as Hannah was also saying, you take on a lot of potential like requirements that are breadth requirements, not necessarily major requirements, which end up taking more time. But if you're just taking classes out of interest, I think it's a really great way to kind of explore things. In my time, I've had the opportunity of taking history classes that I'm interested in, Haas classes, data science classes, even though they're not technically part of my major or, even required, like even if I fulfilled my humanities requirements, I still want to take those because I'm personally interested in them, even though I'm not doing the double major.
Right. And I know that Hannah and Anika both are doing Haas as well. There's also important connections or overlap between departments. So like I'm looking into data science simultaneous degree. There's a ton of overlap between IEOR and data science. So that's also something that if that interests you, like Megan was saying, chase whatever is making you excited. Like if something is interesting, take it. IEOR is a great major in that you have space in your schedule to explore your other interests. It's very multidisciplinary, just as a major itself, but also in the opportunities that it allows. So for me, that's looking more like data science, but I know EECS is also another great opportunity that kind of connects to IEOR. So you can look into those opportunities and decide whether that looks like taking a couple other courses or doing another major or a minor. There's a lot of options, especially if you come in with credits, but even if you don't.
Mm-hmm. And
just to,
sorry.
All right.
No, you have more questions. Go ahead.
No, I wanted to clarify the difference between a double major and a simultaneous degree. I'm sure they probably heard from their engineering student services advisor, but a double major is when you're taking two majors within the same within the same college. So if you had two majors with like EECS and IEOR, that's with the College of Engineering, that would be a double major. And the college requirements stay the same. But if a student wants to do a major in a different college, like Haas or Letters in Science, where data science is, you do have, it's called the simultaneous degree because you're earning 2 degrees, actually 2 degree certificates. Because especially with Letters in Science, which is a BA instead of a BS, you're earning a BA in your LNS major and a BA in your engineering major. And because of that, you have to adhere to the college requirements in the other college, which sometimes gives you a few extra things that you may not have planned for when you were looking at your core curriculum. So it does take some time in talking to your academic advisors to make sure that you know all the things you need to do and how to fit them all together.
And Jenny is an incredible resource there. Just a little shout out.
What was your favorite class or favorite instructor you had enough classes at this point to have, and it doesn't have to be an IEOR class, and why was that class your favorite?
I took this class my freshman fall semester, MCV 55. It's Plagues and Pandemics. I took it because it looked interesting and it was before COVID, and I'm pretty sure I have like some premonition or something. It was an amazing class and it's still running. It's taught by 3 MCB professors. You don't need to be in bio to take it. This kind of cycles back to this idea that you don't need to just take IEOR classes. Like you have this opportunity to just take whatever looks interesting. That was an awesome decision. Like I'm really glad that I did that, not only because it turned out to be highly relevant, but because it was super interesting as I did it.
I'll go next. My favorite class would probably be an IEOR class. It was IEOR 162. So that's like our linear programming and network flows or net graphs. I think that's the complete title of the course. I took it with Professor Hoffbaum, and that was my first IEOR class that I took. And I think it was a really nice introduction. And it's really focused on some sort of like optimization techniques and like resource distribution questions. And so I found that kind of cool. And it was probably the class where kind of it cemented my interest in IEOR. And I haven't looked back since.
Yeah, I think for me, I would say probably also an IEOR class, IEOR 173, which I took last semester, Introduction to Stochastic Processes. Both really enjoyed Professor Zhang's class. I'm taking another one of his classes next semester, 174. But also just the content, to be honest, it was pretty challenging for myself in the beginning. I struggled a bit in the beginning, but the content was really interesting and I enjoy sort of that challenge in a sense, I guess. also the class itself, you see a lot of applications of, you begin to see that like the applications that we always talk about IEOR in, you know, various settings. So that was really cool for me.
Yeah, like Megan, my favorite class was also IEOR 173. I really enjoyed the kind of problem solving you have to do. Like, it was definitely like a challenging class, but it's like really satisfying when you solve problems in a really challenging class, because it's like you worked so hard to like, and the other thing about it was like everything builds off of itself. So it's like by the end of the semester, like everything ties together so nicely. And he's a really interesting professor as well.
So talking about challenging classes, what's the workload like in the major and how do you manage your time?
So I personally, I almost always over enroll at the beginning of the semester. So I'll enroll into like 19 or 20 units, and I'll wait for the syllabuses to come out. And then I'll look at dates when midterms are, when problem sets are due, and when the finals are. So the good thing about IUR classes is the professors do talk to each other. So they try, so typically if you say, oh, 162 as their final the same day as your class, one of the two professors will probably make some accommodation there because we're all taking the same classes. So that's typically not a problem. But then a lot of times, like a lot of classes have problem sets due Friday, for example. And if I'm taking 5 classes and all 5 of them are due Friday, I know I'm going to be working on them on Friday. So I can't do all of it. So that's the kind of things that I do for time management.
Yeah. I think Hannah brings like a really good technique there, where it's like it's perfectly acceptable to enroll for more and then drop out of classes. Like that's sometimes what I do when maybe there's something I might be interested in taking, but I'm not 100% sure on the course just yet. So, you know, I kind of want to check it out, maybe spend a week in that class and then make my ultimate decision. In terms of like actual workload, I think it is important to maybe have some like technique for the way you try to organize. I, for example, am a very like to-do list kind of person. So I like to just kind of take notes and make sure I always know what's due. But the IOR professors definitely do a really good job in terms of, you know, trying to be very clear on what the requirements are and not having a whole ton of busy work. And that's one thing I really appreciate. You know, they won't necessarily have a problem set each week if they don't think it's necessary to have it. So many professors do like every 2 weeks, there's a problem set that comes out. And like they'll always give like extra problems or something that might be additional practice if you want it. But at the same time, you know, if you wanted, like, if like there are just some specific things that really cover the concepts, you can kind of start with that, and that'll be what's mandatory.
Yeah, kind of going off of this idea of time management, I'm a huge advocate for Google Calendar. I have like 20 different calendars enabled on mine, like for different clubs and stuff, but there's so many ways you can organize it. Personally, it's an important tool for me when I look at my own life balance. So I'll do like one color for like me time. I'll do a color for clubs, a color for classes, a color for work outside of classes, like another color for exercise, and it goes on and on. But then you can like take your top-down look at your whole week and say, wow, okay, I'm spending like 10 hours a day on classes. It's probably not very healthy. How can I readjust in a way that I think will make me the happiest and most calm? So if you don't use Google Calendar now, highly recommend it.
Yeah, I was also gonna say, I think in high school I had never used Google Calendars, but for college, that's something that's been super useful. Personally, I like to block out kind of what Sarah was saying, almost everything. It kind of gives some people like, it makes them, it's kind of anxious looking at all like the stuff that's on my calendar, but it's because I think I even block out breaks, which I think helps a lot in terms of that self-care aspect. I know people talk about it a lot, but it really is important because in college, a lot of things you have to balance on your own. For me though, at least I would say my freshman year, my first semester, I took the minimum units. I took 12 units for my first semester because I really wanted to gauge how I felt about classes while also kind of exploring a lot of different clubs. And in that sense, I guess I was maximizing on that end to kind of see what would be the balance. But as semesters went by, I tried to add more course load. And I think what Hannah was saying in terms of adding more and then kind of taking a step back after the first week really is super helpful. And it's something I still am doing for this upcoming fall semester as well. But I would also say to remember that, you can always explore other things if you aren't taking a really heavy course load. A lot of my friends around me, they would choose to take a heavier course load, and it's kind of what you want to try out, I guess, for a semester or for that year, but you can switch it around.
I absolutely
do also recommend attending lectures like live, because I find that it's really hard to keep up with the class when you're not because you fall behind one lecture and then it's like, oh, I'm already behind. I'm not even going to bother going to the next one because I have to catch up on the previous one. So at least, I personally think that to stay on top of it, attending live lectures is the best option. But if you can stay on top of it without attending live lectures, more power to you.
But I also want to reiterate Megan's point about, or was it Sarah who put about having your own self-care time in your calendar?
Megan.
I mean, people forget.
Yeah.
You forget to do that, and it's really important to have a good night's sleep. If you schedule your sleep and know that you're supposed to be sleeping or having a break or going to lunch, these are all things that are really important for you and your mental health and your physical health while you're on campus or even off campus as well.
Even more so off campus too.
Yeah.
It's sometimes harder to manage balance when now, what else are you doing? And people are scheduling meetings on the weekends and late at night. It's okay to establish those boundaries for yourself and just say, nope, you know what, after this time, I'm not meeting. Sorry, we're going to have to find another time. This is my self-care time. It's okay.
Yeah.
And Zoom fatigue is real. If you're on for more than 4 hours a day, it's a little rough. It gets, it's exhausting. So Keki has a question about, could you give a little description about how exactly you solve a problem? Is it purely mathematical, or are you writing a program to solve something, etc.?
So for, I believe, 160, 162, 173, 172, those are all pretty math-based classes. So we have problem sets, and most of the solutions are going to be mathematical. Or they're all probability, statistics, and math classes. I think I haven't personally taken 160 and 162, and I believe some of you guys can speak for it, but there might be a little bit of programming in those classes as well. I know that 162 has their own programming language that they use. There's also 165, which is kind of a hybrid of the two. We have a project that does where you have to write a program, but for the most part, the semester is math-based. It's more statistics.
Thanks, Hannah. Yeah, I think it really depends class to class, kind of like she's saying. IEOR tends to be a more mathematical major, so you will definitely be doing some problem sets that are mainly theoretical, but oftentimes we like to take this theory and put it into application as well, and so that's where these coding assignments might come in. So 162, there's some solvers that exist. And so since this is something that's used in industry, we bring it into the classroom. And so you'll do a project where you'll kind of be using it to solve a more large scale problem. In classes like 165, right? The coding project in 160 as well. Don't worry if you don't have, a lot of coding experience or even any. That's not something to really worry about. The class is meant to kind of manage that out, or you'll be kind of in a group that allows you to kind of pick that up where someone maybe has more coding experience, but then, you can maybe focus a little bit more on the theory side. So it doesn't require a whole lot of maturity there, and pretty much everything you need will be taught to you, or you can go to office hours and get help from our excellent GSIs. And so there's really a lot of opportunities there, but we do, you will see in classes that they try to take something that's theoretical and also have you do something that you may have to do more of in industry or when you're doing a research project.
Yeah, also
We have to really, Sorry, no, go ahead.
Okay. I was going to say, also going off of that, I think one of the things that we talk about is like tight-knit community in IEOR. And I think I've really seen that through classes in terms of like study groups. Like a lot of us here, I think we've all done like homework together or tried to kind of think through things together. And it helps a lot because different people approach things from different ways. I feel like if I were in high school right now and looking at kind of what we're talking about, maybe it seems a little vague, but once you start taking the classes, you realize, you see a problem and you don't know even where to start sometimes, and you might be starting at one perspective, but your friend is starting sort of from a different perspective because you kind of approach things differently. And I guess that's kind of what we mean about solving problems in a sense. But for me also, my experience has largely been the math-focused courses so far. But I think Anika talked about some of the other sides.
And you'll have opportunities like with 180, your project-based course in your senior year, where you'll be able to apply a lot of the things that you're learning. Also to consider, I'm going to plug the Center for Entrepreneurship as well for classes that if you want more of a project hands-on sort of experience. There are courses that are offered through SCET for students across campus that can be really interesting for students who want to see what that application actually looks like. Hi. So my next question is about balancing. How do you balance the social functions that you want and your academic pieces? How do you find time for both? And do you have time for both? And how do you balance the time between the two?
I think I could probably touch on this a little bit. I'm IASE. We're going to bring it up again, so get used to it. I'm one of the co-VPs of programs and events, and one of our department responsibilities within IASE is to actually organize social events for our community and the larger IEOR or ORMS community as well. Those could look like anything from, bonding over Zoom. When we were in person, we would do hikes or we would have in-person socials, things like that. We try to intersperse them throughout the semester. Right now, we're figuring out what that's looking like, but the same concept still applies. On the topic of balancing your social life generally with the rest of your life, it kind of goes back, at least for me, to what Megan was saying. I will distinctly block it out in my schedule. For example, I won't schedule any meetings on Saturday, hard policy. I can schedule meetings all day on Sunday. It doesn't matter. Maybe I have a 6-day week, but Saturday is absolutely off limits. But it's totally doable to balance how you want, especially if it's your first semester. Don't undervalue social time and social commitments. I certainly did that. I was like, oh, I don't need to do that. That's not why I came to Berkeley. I'm gonna do classes. And no, that's the part of the value, at least a lot of the value in Berkeley, is the people. So definitely take advantage of that.
And you can always kind of mix the two too. There's so many times that me and my friend were like, okay, we're gonna study here. We'll study for an hour, and then after that, we would just go out and get ice cream or something like that. I think it's extremely important to still have a rich social life. It's that's when you kind of build these connections that are going to last for years to come. And so there is time for that. You just need to make sure to have that as a little bit of a priority. Remember that you will get through the academics, and they are important. Academics, clubs, it is important, but it's also equally important to build these friendships. And so I know for me at least, I just kind of made that as a priority. Because if I didn't, then I'm the kid who will be Friday night, I will just watch Netflix and that's all I'm gonna do. Putting some priority there, I definitely highly recommend it.
Yeah, definitely agree with that. Also, I think clubs are definitely a great way to meet people and have that social experience. And if it's a professional club, you kind of get both ends of it, I guess. You get both, your professional development, but also you have that social side. These are people you become close friends with and hang out with. I I'm kind of the same. Like my friends who I study with we'll go to a cafe, I think, and we'll study, but at the same time we're honestly hanging out throughout that process. But I would say truly like don't get too like remember that social aspect is important. I think in college these days, it's easy to be really focused on academics or, recruiting. What is the next internship? What am I doing next summer? But I think that social part of college is something that's really, really valuable and something that I miss about being in person for sure. And I would definitely say, I know it's going to be hard for freshmen coming in this semester in such a different setting, but reaching out is another really important thing to people to just ask to, if you want to get on a Zoom call and just talk, things like that, whether it's in person or online. I think reaching out to people is really big part of that social experience as well.
Yeah, like online, so what I've really enjoyed about quarantine is it was actually really easy to make, like it was really hard to make connections, but people you are already really good friends with, it was super easy to talk to them because you just say, let's hop on a Zoom call. Like I have one friend that every Sunday is movie night and we spend like a couple hours watching a movie and then we just catch up for a couple hours. Or like I play board games with one of my friend groups every single weekend. And so if you have a group of people, it's actually really easy to ask them, hey, let's just hop on a Zoom call and hang out for a little bit. You don't have to like go somewhere and do something because you just have to kind of get to your laptop.
Great. I don't see any more questions in the chat. I hope that if you have, we're going to start wrapping up in a little bit. So if you have any questions, definitely please put them in the chat before so you can get them answered. Sarah has a great recommendation. Oh, sorry.
There was one question about a 4-year plan.
Oh, yes. Oh, do you plan semester to semester, or do you do a 4-year plan, or do you plan a 4-year plan then end up doing it semester by semester anyway?
I can jump in here first. So I did create a 4-year plan, but I would probably say that there's not a single semester that looked exactly like what was in my original 4-year plan. I think it would just kind of, I do encourage drafting out a 4-year plan just to kind of know, hey, these are how many units I want to take this semester. There's certain semesters that I knew I wanted to kind of go more, like it was my first time working while taking classes, so maybe want a lighter load or something like that. So, distributing it, but each semester, like I'll go in, that might be my starting point, but I might adjust it and like move around classes. And I think that's completely normal. There's also times that I learned from friends about this other cool class that I didn't know about earlier, and I want to kind of substitute it with another class I had in there or kind of add it in. So I do encourage having a 4-year plan because it's useful to have something to kind of look at and know what kind of the future looks like. But let it be something that's very flexible and that you can adapt is my advice.
Yeah, I think my 4-year plan, I also had a 4-year plan, but every semester has been pretty different from like what I originally had in mind, I think. But also, I think one thing to note, though, particularly for IEOR, is that some of our courses are only in the fall and some are only in the spring. And some have a prereq of another IEOR class before that. So keeping some of those small things in mind for a general sort of a structure, I think is helpful. But the other classes, I sort of just build on top of those that I kind of stick to.
I have a rough 4-year plan that has like core requirements in it. So like I have like IEOR 172 and 160 and 162. So like those core requirements that need to get done. But other than that, like I just have like a block that says IEOR elective or like breath class. So that like I can choose those classes based on like what are my friends taking or what do other people recommend and things like that. So it's a pretty loose idea of a 4-year plan.
And you can use Cal Central
for 4-year plans.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say that.
I saw that Cal Central just added. Sorry, I'm lagging, I think.
No, sorry. Please go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, I saw that Cal Central added a feature for doing 4-year plans. I personally, it's my passion. I love making 4-year plans. I make them for different major combinations, minor combinations, like different upper division classes. I like mark out like when you can declare certain things. It's color coded. There's like 6 colors. I love doing it just because I'm a planner. Like it makes me happy. And that way I have at least some confidence that whatever path I'm on classes wise, that I know what's coming next and I know how it's going to feed into like my overall plan. But like everyone else said, it's definitely a fluid thing. So maybe I've decided on some like music class to take my like spring semester senior year. It might not run then, you know, I might change my mind, but the main point is that I have written which requirement it satisfies for either data science or IEOR. And I can make sure that if I don't take that, then I can replace it with something else. And if you see that like a class, you didn't get into it for some reason, or it's not running that semester, then you can like, I do mine on like Excel, so I can just move the whole row somewhere else in my plan. So I retain all of the information associated with that class.
I think you'll find it a lot, you'll alleviate a lot of stress if you don't try to lock into a 4-year plan in your freshman year. Because that, things change, classes aren't offered in a given semester, faculty go on sabbatical. I think all your advice is great, kind of keeping in mind a rough plan, knowing that you should have some flexibility, because, you know, all things being perfect, you'd be able to take it. But I've never seen a 4-year plan last more than the first semester. As an academic advisor on campus for over 10 years, there are a lot of things, a lot of variables that will happen and that will change what you want to do, and you'll change as well. So what you want to take now will change by the time you're in your senior year. And having an idea of how they structure together, how you meet your core requirements, what happens if you need to move something, so you don't pile everything up into your senior year and you realize that everything conflicts in your last semester because you're taking 6 different classes, which, you know, as an advisor, we don't recommend and we will probably keep you from doing. But just having an idea of what your requirements are and how you're going to fulfill them is really helpful. But, you know, trying to maintain that 4-year plan and being married to that 4-year plan with rigidity is not recommended. It's going to cause a lot more stress for you.
Yeah, making if I could add one thing really quick, making like a loose 4-year plan like that is also helpful if you know that you're going to have certain commitments or things that you're working on in future semesters. So like I know that some people have advised your junior year fall, like lessening your load a little bit, because that's when you're applying to a lot of major internships, and like your junior year summer internship is like very big deal. But you guys are all juniors, so I don't know if you wanted to add something to that. That's just what I've heard.
And I guess the first semester of your senior year as well, if you're doing a lot of heavy recruiting in some of the bigger companies, that's when or flipping that to the spring, depending on what sort of industry you want to be a part of. Having sort of keeping that flexible mindset can be really helpful. And knowing that things will change, because you might decide you want to do a minor and that's going to mess everything up. Your schedule's going to look way different. You want to have a class in there. And I think it's also one of the biggest challenges of doing a minor or a double major or a simultaneous degree is not necessarily planning the classes, but having them all fit together when you need them to in a given semester, especially when you have sequence classes. So highly recommend utilizing your student services advisors to make sure that, you know, if you do need to make a change, what that's going to do to affect the rest of your academic terms. And because, yes, nobody wants to be put in a situation where they can't get their final classes for what they would like to do. My last question, because I think we're going to be wrapping up, is spring ended online. Fall is starting online. What advice do you have to students who are going to be going into a fully virtual environment starting in the spring and starting in the fall? I mean, we hope to be back on campus. We hope to have the hybrid classes and the flexible classes back on campus, but at this time, what would you, like, you've already had to live through the transition from being fully in person to online. Do you have any advice for students that are going into this semester?
One thing that I would advise, especially if you're doing online classes, is setting boundaries. And that, yes, one way that kind of builds into it is using the whole Google Calendar thing. It's really easy for people to schedule meetings at weird hours because you have no excuse because it's quarantine, like, oh, you're not going out anyways. No, there's still you time. So that's one thing. Another thing, which I feel like is huge, it's something that we talked about during the IASC like panel thing earlier, is that like don't do your work in bed. Like, even though you don't have to leave home, like, wake up when you would have woken up at school, get dressed. This is a big one because, like, you stay in your PJs all day, you're in the sleep mindset. We're not in the sleep mindset. Get dressed, go to your desk wherever it is you're working. Like, if you need, Zoom your friends, FaceTime your friends, hold each other accountable, but try to treat it as much like a regular day as you can. Like, if you're staying in bed, if you're staying in your PJs, like, you know, doing all those things, then you're probably not going to be like super focused academically as you would have been before. So try to establish those good habits now.
Fantastic. Thanks, Sarah. Anybody have anything else to add?
So I recommend, especially my freshman year, study groups were so important to me. And I can't imagine how hard it's going to be to like find those study groups on a virtual setting, because you can't just like walk up to someone in lecture and say, hey, are you free this weekend? Do you want to study? Like, it's like, I can't imagine how awkward it is to like just private message some random person over Zoom. Hey, you want to study this weekend? So however you do that, whether it's like through joining IISC and finding people who are in similar classes to you, or joining other clubs, or maybe a lot of classes will have resources for study groups, but study groups are so important. Like, when I took a lot of my classes, I don't know how I would have passed if I hadn't had other people to like keep me accountable and study with them. And also like just like being able to explain concepts to people also helps you study and things like that.
As something add on, I think ISC is going to try to help coordinate study groups, so maybe that'll make it a little bit easier in the virtual setting, but I think that's extremely important. This next thing I'm going to say might come with a bias as an instructor, but if you are comfortable, I highly recommend in Zoom classes turning on your video and interacting with the professor. So maybe if it's not turning on video, it's talking in the chat. But if you try to actively contribute, you know, respond to their questions, give your own questions, not only are you going to have better learning experience because your questions are being answered, you're really feeling engaged, but you're also going to make it a much, much better experience for your peers who now maybe someone was not comfortable asking a question, but now you ask that question and, you know, it's helped 50% or more of the class. And it's also really, really nice to the instructor. They like seeing people's faces. They want to make sure everyone's following. They want to make sure that they're addressing the concerns of the class. And it's nice to know that they're talking to someone rather than just kind of a blank screen. So that will just also just bring more energy to the Zoom call, hopefully reduce kind of the burnout that we feel from it a little bit. But of course, like Sarah said, make sure to take your own personal time away from your computer, away from Zoom, because this is going to be something that we really need to pay extra attention to during this time.
As a member of Anika's discussion section for E16A, I can attest that this is valuable for the students as well. And just staying engaged during class, it's super easy to just sit there and like sit down and say, okay, I'm just gonna listen today. I'm gonna take notes, and then like your phone goes off, and then something else happens, and oh my God, that's a squirrel outside. And it's really easy to get distracted because I love squirrels, and so it's turn on your camera so you don't embarrass yourself by freaking out because there's a squirrel outside.
Yeah, I would honestly, also as an instructor, I really encourage students to turn on their cameras. I think it holds yourself also accountable for being in a course and not being in bed while you're in class, but also you kind of get to interact with other students, you know, who might also have their camera turned on. You can kind of, you know, this might be someone you want to reach out to form a study group. But I think to tie into what everyone said, my main thought process behind this upcoming semester for especially freshmen is to try to do things that you think you would do in a normal semester as much as you can online. Whether that means interacting in class, asking questions to professors, going to office hours, joining clubs, all of those aspects. I think it's really easy to say that now that we're online, you know, maybe I won't do it this semester, I'll do it the next. But I think being that first semester in college, it's that kind of, you have that like momentum to really do those things and push off your college time to do those things because they'll really help you. Office hours, even online, they're still really helpful for when you need that extra support in classes. And for clubs, you can still join a club. And I know whether it be ISC or other clubs, they're also all working really hard to try and make this upcoming semester possible in both whether it be a professional experience or that social experience. So I would really encourage new freshmen to try and do these things that you think you would do in a normal semester as best as you can.
Fantastic. Thank you all so much for participating today and for helping our new students. It's not, the semester hasn't started yet. You're not really, you're taking time out, your own personal time, and really, it's just so nice to have the participation of ISC as well. The next piece we're going to have is going to be a fun piece, and this is actually something that the department is doing because we do want to encourage social interactions with current students and new students, and just trying to find a way to build community while we're all online. And I think one of the concerns and one of the questions is, how do you meet other students within IEOR? Especially, now that you are new students coming in, you may not be sharing classes with some of the upperclassmen, and if you can't have like face-to-face social events, it's hard to have those conversations and to find that mentorship for students who are in the program, who are upperclassmen in the program. So we have done something kind of fun, and we've decided to have you sorted. We're going to do a house sorting, sort of like a Harry Potter house sorting for students. We have a quiz. I'm going to share it in chat right now. And then Keith is going to walk you through it. And I'm going to give you information on how to share it and to find out where everybody else is sorted when we're once we go through it. So here is the actual case. And I'm going to, we're going to reduce the number of shared screens for a second. So sorry, Hannah, and Sarah, and Megan, I'm going to actually say goodbye. Okay. Okay. Looks like there's the link. Looks like we're having a moment to get Keith back on. Great. Keith, can you try resharing your screen?
Okay, I think I'm back. Hello. Let's try. Okay. Okay, cool. So you should be able to see my screen now. And so, yeah, it's pretty self-explanatory. Essentially, you are going to move through this page and pick kind of, answer these questions one at a time to, just kind of pick like what industry you like, what your superpower is, your vacation. So go through this quiz. At the end, it's going to give you a result. And basically, we have 4 different houses. And they are the Lillian Gilbert house, the Shmuel Oren house, the Richard Karp house, and who am I missing, Ginny? Richard Karp, Shmuel Oren, and George Danzig house. And then once you get your results, Ginny is going to put a survey into the chat where you will register the house that you got. And then next week, we are going to have a social event with all the undergraduate students. And at the social event, we will be having everyone do this sorting quiz. And then you will be put into these different groups, and then there will be some different activities that will that you will work on as a house. And then those will be some people that you can collaborate and work with throughout the coming year. So Ginny has just put the poll into the chat. And so go ahead and after you take the quiz, put which house you received. Does A, B, C, or D say the 4 different house names, Ginny?
Now I tried to copy and paste and it just made a mess. Here we go.
Okay.
And there we go.
Awesome.
Let's see what we're looking at.
So go ahead and do
We'll see how we
that.
sort it out.
Um,
We'll see how we all get
What's
sorted
that?
out.
yeah.
Now we hope to sort the entire college or the entire department and to have you and have events based on your house. But you're going to be our test. Ah, well, somebody got Oren. Woohoo. While you're finishing that up, I'm going to put in chat, if you wanted to sit down and have a conversation with me